you doing, guys? It's your boy Nando. You know what it is. It's the Pound for Pound Boxing Show in association with Seconds Out Coffee. Today, I've got a very special guest, co-founder of Hybrid Performance, a doctor of physical therapy, a professional powerlifter with 25 world records, and now a professional female boxer with a perfect record, 1 victory by TKO. Is there anything she can't do? Let's find out. It's Stefi Cohen. How you doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
It's an honor to have you on. The question is there anything you can't do? There's so much things you have achieved in your life. You're not even 30 years old yet, and you've achieved so much. I'm
sure there's some stuff I can't do, but I don't know what they are yet. We'll see.
Before we get onto the boxing side, for anyone obviously that doesn't know much about you, how about an insight on first, obviously the company that you run is Hybrid Performance. Give us a little insight on this company.
Yeah, so we founded Hybrid Performance Method about 5 years ago. It's a platform that's dedicated to distributing online workout programs that are centered on strength to people of all levels in an affordable and accessible manner. So we quickly transitioned from essentially being coaches to scaling that to a 50-person team and being more in the SaaS business, so software as a service. So now we have about 20 software engineers working with us, and we consider ourselves more like a tech or an IT business. We've built multiple verticals over the last 5 years, including 2 apparel brands, a nutrition coaching service, and a gym, podcast, and YouTube that generates revenue. And yeah, we're just constantly looking to expand vertically as much as we can and provide as much value as possible for the fitness community.
And if there's anyone here in the UK that wants to be part of that and check it out, is it available for anyone in the UK?
Yeah, everything is online. You can access it at any point in time.
Amazing, amazing. Let's talk about your powerlifting. Where did the passion and love come for that?
So, okay, it's interesting that you frame it like that. I've never really been passionate about powerlifting or loved participating in the sport per se, but one thing that I do love is winning and competing and being good at something. So going into powerlifting, so let me backtrack a little bit. I played soccer professionally back home in Venezuela for about 5 years, moved to the United States to pursue a scholarship, ended up deferring that and focusing on school because it was really hard to balance both things, but not quite ready to let go of my identity as an athlete. So I tried a bunch of different things. I tried CrossFit, which led me to Olympic weightlifting, which then led me to powerlifting. And it was one of those things where it just really came naturally to me. And more than that, it was the rate of progress that I was experiencing, especially early on in my career, was such that I ended up breaking my first world record within like 8 months of starting powerlifting. So I exhibited a clear aptitude for it. You know, I had just kind of an innate ability to get strong really fast. And that's kind of what hooked me about it more than anything else about the sport, really. So that's kind of how I got started.
Amazing. And do you still have the love for soccer as well?
Soccer will always be my first love. Will always be. But you know what? Comparing it to boxing, I think boxing is the sport that I've enjoyed participating in the most for many reasons. I think I'm at a point in my life where I've obviously achieved maturity in just as a human, as a person, but more importantly, athletic maturity, in the sense that, you know, I came to terms with my mortality as an athlete, not in terms of death, but in terms of my athletic lifespan. You know, I kind of like, I can see where the end is, you know, and it's near. Whereas when you're 15 or you're 18, you feel like you have your whole life ahead of you. And it's like, there's very little sense, if any, sense of urgency of achieving certain goals or markers that you've set for yourself. So I'm at a point where I I know that just my time is running out as an athlete, and I just want to capitalize as much as possible on everything, not just my skills as an athlete, but also just soaking in as much as I can about the experience. So I'm enjoying everything so much more than I have ever enjoyed any other sport in my life, because I kind of accept the good with the bad, and honestly, nothing is bad. It's just the ability to withstand discomfort. And I welcome it with open arms. Like I love everything from the great sessions that you go in and you're dialed in to the shit sessions where you go in and spar and get the shit beat out of you. Like I really genuinely enjoy everything. So I think I found boxing in a pivotal point in my life where I'm able to just go in and enjoy all of it.
Brilliant. Before I ask you again more questions about the boxing side, obviously you and your team did something back in November last year. You brought out a book. Let's talk about that book. You want to give us a little insight on this book?
Yeah, for sure. So, being an athlete in powerlifting at the highest level, it takes a toll on your body pretty significantly. Independently of how much you weigh, ultimately we're all made of the same ligaments, tendons, bones, and muscles, and the effects of gravity and the effects of resistance training sooner or later gets to you. Because my rate of progress was so fast, I had a lot of kind of back issues early on in my career. That it was during my time in physical therapy school when I was getting my doctorate degree. And I was mind boggled by just how little consistency there was between practitioners in terms of the plan of care and the diagnosis. And, like when you're going into somebody's office and you're kind of putting them on a pedestal in terms of the authority that they have and the knowledge that they have, you're kind of looking at them as a guide, to solve your problems. And when I realized that wasn't going to be the case, that there was so little continuity between what I was being told and kind of, I felt like nothing was really working for me when I was in pain. That's what led me to start doing my own research while I was in school about back pain. I just wanted to really starting from 300,000 years ago or whatever, how far back I went in the book, just trying to understand how we got to where we are in terms of our understanding of the human body and injuries, and then specifically back injuries, and kind of where it went wrong and what the current research, current literature says about back injuries and how we can better manage it and how we can better overcome them. So that was kind of the thing that led me to want to write that book, was my own struggles with low back pain. So eventually, I spent 3 years doing research, really for myself. Eventually, I inputted a program for back rehab onto our software, onto the hybrid software. And in conjunction with that program, I wrote a short 16-page PDF that explains how to navigate the program. Because what's interesting about low back pain is that we are moving away from a structural / mechanistic understanding of what we experience when we have back pain to a more holistic and neurological understanding about, so biopsychosocial understanding about back issues. So what role does our brain play in our perception of pain, and what is pain? What does it actually mean? Does it mean that there's damage to a structure? How do we know which structure is damaged? How accurate are MRIs and X-rays, which we know they're not. They're about 56% sensitive. So we really, as a physical therapist, I was disappointed to see just the kind of advice that was being given to the public, and that's what the supplemental material for the rehab program that I put into hybrid was. And then I just found myself constantly going back, revisiting that PDF and adding more and more and more to it. So a 16-page long PDF became a 20-page, a 40-page, to a point where I was like, okay, this makes no sense as a PDF anymore. Maybe I'll keep doing research and add as much to it as I can and provide the most comprehensive, analysis of current and past literature that exists.
Brilliant. My question is not just lower back pain, but do you think because of your degree and your research, obviously as humans, we can't control sometimes, an accidental injury could happen, but has it helped you a lot throughout your career to avoid injuries that maybe you could have got if you didn't do your research?
100%. And, managing injury risk is a lot simpler than people make it be. We live in an era where attention is a zero-sum game. So everybody's trying to get everybody's attention. And in that process, we're veering so far away from what actually works in an attempt to get more eyes on us. So you see all these therapists, strength coaches, chiropractors putting out extremely elaborate and confusing exercises online or advice online, that what they do essentially is that they overcomplicate the subject to such an extent where they position themselves as the guru that has all the answers, and they position the patient or the client as helpless and dependent, essentially in fear and dependent of the guide, whoever the healthcare practitioner is or the strength coach. When in reality, managing injuries is relatively easy. It doesn't require special exercises on top of a Bosu ball. It doesn't require you to close your eyes and touch your nose. It's a lot simpler. So the best way that I can explain it is injuries happen when the load that's being put on the tissues exceeds their current capacity. So if you picture in your head, load is on the left-hand side, capacity is on the right-hand side. It's an equation that needs to be balanced at all points in time. So in terms of load, what I mean by load is how much training you're doing, right? Like if you're doing powerlifting, are you manipulating your load appropriately in a way that makes sense? Kind of progressive overload. Every week you add a little bit of weight, but not too much, so that you can let your body recover and adapt from the stimulus that you're putting on it. So that's one part of the equation. Within that same part of load is how is that force traveling through your body? So that's how we get into compensations and movement analysis. That's a little bit more intrinsic. And a little bit more, has to be a little bit more detailed, and probably it'll require to have a trained eye to look at you. But in very few cases, we see movement compensations, movement deviations that lead to excess load or force being transmitted in one particular area. That's what we see in SI injuries or knee injuries, where for whatever reason you have a shift towards one side of the body, maybe a previous injury, and then you have to find a way to make sure that load is being transmitted down and up the chain in a more balanced way. And then in terms of improving the capacity of the tissue, like I said, it's a matter of making sure that you're programming in an intelligent way, making sure that you're not it's called the acute chronic workload ratio, so that you're not increasing your workload too fast. And this applies to really any sport. It's not only about lifting. Say if you're boxing, if you've been boxing, I don't know, you're doing 3 sessions a week. If you go from 3 sessions a week to 6 sessions a week, that might be a problem. And it's what happened to me in boxing even. My wrists, the first, when I started ramping training up, my wrists were shot, both of them. I had to take 2 weeks off. I had to get prolotherapy shots in my wrist, and I know better. But so it's that really fast increase in workload that can lead to issues down the road. And then finally is understanding that once you have an injury, your margin of error for what you can and can't do becomes smaller and smaller. So, if you have an acute back injury, then maybe say you take a couple or 3 days off and whatnot, that injury is still, the margin of error is so small that you need to be so careful with what you add into your training within that period, because you have to let that capacity build up over time. And there's nothing can substitute that. There's no magic exercise or soft tissue technique or chiropractor that can speed that up, other than your body producing the chemicals that it needs to produce in order for you to adapt and to overcome whatever it is that the training that you were doing prior.
Brilliant. I'm sure you just saved a lot of people from injuries right now.
I hope so.
Yeah. Let's talk about your transition into boxing. But obviously, before you decided that you wanted to take this professionally, take it serious, was you a massive boxing fan? Was you a huge boxing fan? Who did you grow up watching? Who were some of the names that you loved watching?
No, to be honest, I'm not that much of a sports fan of any sport, really. I watched, not even soccer, man. I didn't watch that much soccer. I love playing FIFA, but outside of that, I've been more of a doer rather than a fan. So I didn't grow up watching combat sports. But as far as, favorite boxers go, Mike Tyson is up there. Obviously, Canelo, Loma, Katie Taylor, Clarissa Shields. Those are kind of like my current ones. But what was the other part of your question?
No, that was so it was like I wanted to know if you was a huge boxing fan before getting into the actual sport. So you're more of a person that likes to participate than the actual to be the fan, basically.
Exactly.
Brilliant. And at what point of your life did you think I want to get into boxing and I want to take it serious?
So, I'm the type of person, my personality type is I have a really hard time living in the present. I'm always kind of looking into the future, just trying to plan ahead so I can leave as many options open in my future. Part of the reason why, even though my ultimate goal in life was to be a professional athlete, I never discounted or, never gave up on pursuing an academic degree as well, going to school, college, and then to grad school. I like to have options, if anything goes wrong. So I understood that my lifespan as a powerlifter wasn't going to be that long, especially because early on I was already having back issues. So, and also it's extremely monotonous. So I couldn't see myself doing that for 10, 15 years. I knew it was going to be kind of like a 5-8 year kind of career. So when I was 25, turning 26, I started going to Muay Thai gyms, really out of curiosity, just more so to see if I had kind of a natural aptitude and inclination for martial arts. And I just kept getting like ignored and denied from every gym. Like I was an old dog that couldn't learn new tricks. You're too old to start kind of thing. I was 25, 26. So they would just like clump me in with the group training classes, which wasn't at all what I wanted to do. I wanted to have one-on-one lessons. I was willing to pay. I wanted to have attention of a coach. I wanted to compete. But people just kept calling me old and saying that I couldn't do it. So kind of gave up on that for a couple of years. And then last year during the pandemic, so I had competed for the last time in powerlifting at the end of March of 2020 last year. And then once the lockdown started, it was kind of the perfect excuse for me to take a step back or away from the platform and just figure my life out. And it was the first time in 6 years that I didn't lift heavy, because for the last 5-6 years I just kind of had this like sense of urgency, or this belief that there was a certain expectation from people of me when I compete and which competitions I show up to. So I was competing 4 to 6 times a year and just really beating my body up way too much. So once the lockdown started, I was like, perfect. This is the perfect excuse or justification to relax for a bit, let my body heal from all these nagging injuries that I've accumulated over the years, and just reset and try to reignite the passion that I had for fitness, because that was gone too. Like that, it was powerlifting for me at that point was 100% work. It was what I had to do in order to keep my relevance and in order to keep my business going. But there was very little to none, if any, enjoyment for me. So once the lockdown started, I hung a heavy bag from the squat rack here in my garage. I filled it up with old clothes and sandbags. And I had a pair of gloves that a friend of mine had given me a while back, and just started hitting the bag. And my coach Kareem messaged me on Instagram and was like, hey, if you want to learn how to actually box, I'd be down to go to your house and teach you, an hour a week if you want. I was like, yeah, okay, cool. So we trained on the street for 2 or 3 months. We were just training on the street and in my garage. So we went from 1 session a week to 2 to 3 to 4. And then, again, my rate of progress was pretty fast. So that's one of the things that I use as a determining factor for whether or not I can or can't do something. How fast can I pick up on all the skills that I need in order to succeed in the sport. So for boxing is footwork, your agility and coordination, your hand-eye coordination, your balance, your power, how well can you produce force from your legs into your arms, your ability to be uncomfortable and take punches in the face, So I just kind of felt that in all of these categories, I was improving fast in all the categories and kind of saw that there was some potential there, same as my coach who really believed in me from the beginning. And then, that turned into way more than I thought it would turn into. And now I'm training with Dr. Pedro Diaz, who's a world-renowned boxing coach. And just, having his support and his endorsement means everything to me. I think it says a lot, so I'm excited.
And obviously you spoke about your wrist, but how the transition of your previous training, when you got into a real training with not in your garage, but when you finally got into the boxing gym and you trained hard for your first fight. Tell us how that felt, that transition from that training to something new to you.
Yeah. Definitely, I started having aches and pains in places that I never even thought were important. Dude, my biggest pain is the bottom of my feet. I think it's because I sweat so much or I haven't found the right socks or whatnot, but I have massive blisters at all points in time and I'm losing my toenails. So that's been rough. But yeah, no, in terms of the intensity and the camp, it really is everything that I've ever dreamed of. I'm finally, for the first time in my life, I'm living the life of a professional athlete, training 2 sessions a day, having to recover to my ice baths and my sauna therapy and massage therapy every week. But no, it's been incredible. There's a bunch of pro boxers that train there. My training partner is Paige Van Sant. So just being around those people and learning more about the type of mindset that you need to have as a boxer, how you need to carry yourself, and just overcoming a lot of the mental hurdles that come from training for boxing has been the most interesting part, because no matter how hard you train outside the ring, when you get in the ring for a fight, it's a completely different animal. It really is. So being as prepared as possible becomes top priority, especially conditioning wise, which is hard for me. For the last 8 years, I've been avoiding walking, so it is interesting.
Let's go into that night when you made your debut. First of all, sum up your feeling when you were backstage and, they knock on the door and say, Stefi, get ready, you're next. How did you feel?
Okay, so this is interesting. I was not nervous whatsoever, especially if I compare it to before a powerlifting competition where, dude, I'm literally having panic attacks in the back room before powerlifting competitions. It's bad. I have so much anxiety, panic attacks. I can't eat. I can barely, I'm shaking. I can barely stand. It's the worst. And I was so calm for the boxing match. And I think the reason why, obviously, I was extremely well prepared and I had a team of people around me that were so confident that I was going to do well, that kind of permeated. Dexter, bro, stop. My dog. That kind of permeated into how I felt about my training and about the fight. But besides that, it's competing in powerlifting where you're being tested in only one variable, which is your strength. That is stressful because there's no room for error. No room for error. You're either strong or you are not. There's nothing else to test. There's no athleticism. There's nothing, mind, nothing. It's you get under the bar. Did you squat it or did you not? So in boxing, just the fact that there were so many other variables kind of made me feel more relaxed and more at ease with the whole situation. Because even though, my biggest thing now is how little experience I have. Anyone that I get in the ring with has years of experience, will have years of experience. So I have to find I had to find a balance to kind of overcome the lack of experience that I have in order to feel confident in other areas, right? So for me, it was my strength, working on my head movement, working on my striking, just the basics, just straight punches kind of thing. So yeah, I think that was the main thing that kind of led me to be a little bit more calm during the fight, was that there were so many other things that I could focus on that, probabilistically speaking, I thought, really being rational, like I could rationalize in my head what the probabilities are of me winning based on the skills that I have and based on the skills that my opponent didn't have,
Brilliant. So let's talk about your opponent, Heidi Zappa. Now, this was a different opponent compared to anyone making a pro debut, because I'm a lifelong boxing fan, and I know for a fact that anyone that makes their debut, I've seen people fight someone that has a record of 2 wins and 100 losses. Mm-hmm. This girl was no walk in the park, because 3 wins, 4 losses. That's more of a fight in your 4th or 5th fight. Mm-hmm. And I'm not just saying it because you're on my show, but your movement that night was as if you've been boxing your whole life. And to stop her in your debut was just incredible. So tell us what your analysis, because us as humans, we are our biggest critics. We criticize ourselves personally than anyone else. So what's your analysis of your performance there?
So prior to the fight, I was talking to my coaches, and they kind of planted this seed of a second bout knockout in the second round. And I kind of went into it with that expectation of myself. So first round, I felt pretty good, calm, picking my shots really well, working on my defense, staying in the center of the ring, felt great. Then when the second round came and I didn't knock her out, that's when I started almost panicking. I'm like, oh shit, my coach has said that on the second round I should have knocked her out. What's going on? Why haven't I been able to do it? And that's when I feel like my technique kind of went out the window, especially during the knockout. It was more like a brawl. But I'm happy with my performance all the way until that point. But I learned so much from it, just looking at what I did and just watching the replay, and it became a lot clearer what I need to do next time. But you're right, in terms of my opponent being difficult, I totally agree with you. It was heartbreaking for me to see some of the comments that people were saying about her, especially her physical appearance. That's something that I really don't stand for. People judging her skills as a fighter based on how she looked, and it's really not fair. There's a record, she has that record, and it really wasn't an easy fight for me.
They said the same for Andy Ruiz, and he shocked the world and became Mexico's first heavyweight champion and did the unthinkable. So they can say what they want, and
exactly.
Thankfully she didn't beat you, but if she did, they would have all eaten their words. So, and she fought well. So, listen, one thing you will learn, and I don't know if you've learned it already, boxing has the worst critics in any sport out there. It is brutal, and you got to have thick skin to be in boxing. Even for what I do, and I'm not even famous yet, but people like me get comments online of, the questions I ask or anything like that. So imagine a professional boxer, I can imagine the comments, whether they're made in the public or in the DMs. You just have thick skin for them because, they're brutal, the boxing fans.
Yeah, luckily I have a 10 years of experience with just getting slammed online for whatever reason. So I'm used to it. But something I wanted to add about that was, I realized this after I watched Clarissa Shields' debut in the PFL, how much shit people were talking about her groundwork, and it's the same for me. Some people were saying that I didn't look great, whatever. the reason why that is, I think, is because you're used to watching this person completely dominating the sport, right? Clarissa Shields is undeniably one of the best female boxers that has ever lived, but she's a beginner in MMA, right? So as spectators, we were expecting to watch her fight like as if she was Amanda Nunes in her first fight, but it's not the case. Like, she's been doing MMA for 6 months, 8 months, whatever, however long it is. Same for me, you know. I dominated in a completely different sport. I'm coming into this as a beginner, as a newbie, and that's what I'm gonna look like, you know, within reason, right? Like, I think I look pretty good, but I think that's what's happening to the spectators in terms of their expectations. I think is that they're used to seeing us perform at the highest level, and now we're going into it brand new into a sport, and it's confusing for them, I think.
I think the issue in sport, and I'm not one of them, but what I've learned about boxing fans is if someone is arrogant, but they deserve to be, like Clarissa Shields, Floyd Mayweather, even all the way back to Muhammad Ali, even Mike Tyson before he was beaten by Buster Douglas, is that if you are telling the world you are the best in the world, some boxing fans don't like the arrogance, or some people just don't want to accept that that person is the best in the world, and they are waiting for them to fail. So if Clarissa wins, but it's not a great performance in their eyes, that's their opportunity to, you know, say something. It's the same as Floyd. He recently fought Logan Paul. So many people just wanted Floyd to get knocked out.
Yeah,
He's the best boxer we've seen in the last 20 years. You know, he's my era Muhammad Ali. He is. So, you know, that's the thing about boxing, is that if you tell the world you are the best, and you deserve to say that, like Clarissa, and she is the best in the world, the best women's boxer right now. There is that debate. Who is it, Clarissa or Katie Taylor? You know, everyone has their opinions, but, you know, they just wait for that person to fail, and then, you know, that's when they'll attack. That's the thing with boxing fans.
No, with anybody. People love seeing people that are successful fail. They love it. I actually, you know what, now that you mentioned that, I want to look into what the psychological phenomenon for that is. Like, why is there such fascination with people who are doing great and who are at the top failing? Why do people love that so much? There has to be something.
There has to be something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, you know, I love seeing people be successful. You know, it gives you that motivation to achieve not what they have, but half of what they've achieved. I'll be happy even with a quarter. If I could achieve 5% of what you have achieved in your life, I'll be a happy man. So, you know, it's haters will always hate. That's the facts of it.
Yeah, for sure.
What I want to ask you is, obviously, I want to go to September 18th, but before that, do you have a fight in between, or are you going to train now straight into your second fight on September 18th, or are you going to have a fight in between that?
I would love to have a fight in between that, something local, small, but I don't know. We haven't really sat down and looked at the calendar and see what's available and see if I can find an opponent. But if I can find a fight and an opponent in time to do a fight in between, I would love that, just to get some more experience.
Amazing. Let's go to September 18th. You're going to be part of a monstrous undercard. You got Eddie Hall against the Mountain. I call him the Mountain because I can't really pronounce his name. So I know him as the Mountain. So what an event. Top ranked ESPN in Las Vegas. When you first heard that you was going to be part of this event, sum up the feeling in your second or third fight.
Initially, it was going to be my first fight. Yeah. I mean, no, I was excited. I'm excited. I was excited. I'm still excited to be a part of it. I think it's a historic thing. I'm a little bit apprehensive about the whole thing because I believe there's a big misconception about why I'm getting into the sport. You know, a lot of people are talking about it as if I'm getting into it because of the clout or to get attention or because of the money or whatever, which isn't the case at all. Like I really fell in love with the sport, and I'm enjoying myself so much, the happiest I've ever been, really, like living a pro athlete lifestyle and like learning a new sport, being a beginner, being around all these professional boxers. It's a dream come true, really. So it's not the reason why I'm doing it. So I'm apprehensive about it in the sense that I don't want that to discredit me in any way as a professional boxer, because my intention is to continue climbing the pro boxer ladder, try to win world titles and do everything by the book, essentially. So I just hope that me participating in that event doesn't reflect poorly on me as a boxer in that way, and a lot of it is going to come down to the execution of the event, the promoters doing a good job, the event running flawlessly, the live stream working really well, and the fights being entertaining. Because also, if the fights are not entertaining, then everybody's going to be talking shit about the event, and guess what? I'm participating in it, so it's going to look bad on me as well. So I have no idea how that's all going to go down. That fight between Thor and Eddie Hall could be either the most entertaining thing you've ever seen or a complete bummer. Who knows? I don't even know what to expect. I've seen Thor training. He looks pretty good. I haven't seen much of Eddie's training. I'm curious to see, if he's gotten his gas tank back, how his conditioning is. I know he used to be a professional or Division I swimmer. So I know he has the capability to get pretty good at conditioning as well, but I don't know what his training looks like or anything like that. Thor might actually come train down here with me for a few weeks with Pedro, which I would love. And then there's the two CrossFitters who are fighting, Bridges versus Hepner.
Yeah.
That I have no idea. I've seen Bridges hit the pads. Doesn't look too promising. I haven't seen much of Hepner's. And then there's me and Avril. So I don't know, man. I just hope the rest of the fights look good and are entertaining, because if not, it's going to make this whole influencer boxing thing continue being a joke.
Well, it doesn't matter what the other fights do. It's your job to steal the show, Stefi.
I will.
Let's do, obviously, the main event. I can't really speak on it. I've never seen Eddie Hall fight. I've seen Thor fight twice. I think the only thing right now that Thor has over Eddie is he's more active. He's had 2 fights this year, if I'm not mistaken. He recently had one 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I think his last one was at the beginning of the year or somewhere near the beginning of the year. So he's been more active. I don't know if from now until September 18th, Thor's going to have another fight. I don't know if Eddie, it would be smart for him, but, time is running out for him to have one fight at least to, get that ring rust off if he ever had any ring rust. I don't know if it's the first time he's ever entering the ring, but it would be smart. And another thing I want to touch up on, if anyone thinks that you are doing this for the clout, they are not real boxing fans, because if you're doing it for the clout, you would have got in there with a YouTuber. You're getting in there with Avril Mathie, who is undefeated, who knocked out her last opponent in the 4th round, 6 fights, 5 wins, 1 draw. That's no joke. That's not getting in there for the clout. That's getting there to do business and to be serious. So anyone that thinks that you're doing it as a joke, they need to forget about that, because that's not an opponent. This is an opponent that you would have in your 6th, 7th round. To have her as your 3rd, 2nd, if you have another one, or a 3rd fight, I've got much respect for you for stepping in there for an experienced fighter like that. And it just shows how much you want to show everybody your hard work and how much you want to progress quickly in this sport and climb the rankings. Because by beating her, you will climb the ranks and you will get everyone in the division's attention as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm excited.
Do you know much about her? I know I've just told you obviously her records, but do you know much about her dangers?
I've sparred with her. So she
amazing.
She trains over at Sweatbox, which is not far from where I live. I've been there a few times, sparred with her a few times. Good boxer. It's not 100% that I'm gonna fight her in September though, because right now we both accepted the contract without having an opponent, and there was the possibility of us having to fight one another. I would personally love to get in the ring with her, but it'll all depend on, whether or not she wants to get in the ring with me, and what her options are and my options are, really. Because go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if she doesn't, I don't know if you're allowed to say it, but what are the other options? Are there other names that has been presented to you that might take her place?
No, we don't have anyone else on the radar yet. We're going to start looking now. We should. It's 3 months out.
Amazing. You already answered the question for me, because I wanted to know if you were doing the boxing more as a personal goal to say, you know what, I got in the ring, I did it, or is it that you want to become a world champion? I think you've already answered that for me. So is the goal for yourself, obviously you've got 25 world records in powerlifting, is the next goal now to eventually climb the ladder and become a world champion in boxing?
Listen, part of my life's philosophy, so if you see here, I have the 3 Olympic rings tattooed on me. So I got those 3 rings when I first started doing Olympic lifting. I grabbed an empty barbell and I did a bunch of snatches. And I went and I got the 3 rings. Because I can't just do something for the sake of doing something. Even if I don't achieve, the highest level that there is in a sport or in my profession or whatever it is, when I'm older, I want to be able to say that I did everything and that I tried my best. That I did everything in my power to be as good as I can be. And, I didn't end up going to the Olympics, so that's why I have 3 rings, but I'm never taking that off. I'm never removing that. And I don't look at it as a sign of failure. I look at it as honestly, just it's bravery to have big goals and dream big and work your ass off. So I've never gone into anything hoping to just do well. I've always gone into everything that I've done with the intention of being as good as I can possibly be. So it applies to boxing as well. I can't just half-ass things. I can't just do it for the sake of doing it. I'm trying to get as good as I can and trying to take as many world titles as I can in my career.
Amazing. And do you mind me asking, obviously you're if I'm not mistaken, are you in the featherweight division at the moment?
So I'm walking around without dieting or anything at 125. I've lost 18 pounds since I transitioned from powerlifting. And if I continue at this rate, who knows? I right now I could definitely fight at 114 as well.
Are you open to go up and down in the weight divisions if the right opportunity came?
For sure, yeah. That's and that's an advantage that I have competing in a weight restricted sport for the last 10 years. That I know how to put on weight. I know how to take it off. I know how to cut. I know how to water load. I know how to refuel. I've been doing it for 10 years. So I'm really confident going up and down weight classes without letting it affect my performance at all.
Our channel is in the UK known for, how do you say it, stirring the pot a bit. I'm not trying to call anyone out.
Hell yeah, let's call people out. Listen, when I first started boxing, I'm like, okay, fine. Because there's this weird stigma in the powerlifting community where you're supposed to support and be happy for people that beat you. I got into trouble one time because my biggest opponent at a powerlifting meet, she made a lift that cost me $20,000, and I'm in the back of the video going like that, and I caught so much heat because I wasn't happy for her. So when I started boxing, I'm like, hell yeah, at least I can pretend banter for a bit.
Brilliant. And is there any names that you will want to get in the ring with?
Oh man, I think Avril would be the first one. An opponent that would be interesting for me to fight, that would be challenging, but that would be fair. And in the long run, I don't know. I don't have anyone in mind. Yeah, right. Man, not now. In the future.
No, in the future. I mean, in the future,
Yeah.
obviously.
Of course, I would love to fight all the biggest names. I mean, that's ultimate goal, right? And that's how you really prove yourself as a boxer, is fighting real boxers that have accomplished real things in the sport. So, absolutely, I hope that I can acquire as much skills as I need and evolve as an athlete as much as I need to be able to safely get in the ring with someone like that.
Brilliant. I'm going to name some names for you. I don't know if you would know them because they are UK fighters. I know some of them will be so happy for their names to be linked with yourself because, I've seen actually them liking your post on Instagram. So I know they're huge fans of yours as well.
I think I know who you're going to what's her name? Ebanie Bridges.
Is she from Australia? Ebanie Bridges is actually Australian. She's definitely won. She's actually good friends with Avril as well. Yeah. And the other one is Shannon Courtenay. She just recently won the WBA title here. She beat Ebanie Bridges. Yeah. Stevie Lee. We got Beck Connolly, who's fighting Bridges at the Matchroom fight camp as well. My question to you, if the right opportunity came for you, can your fans in the UK ever see you travel across the pond and fight here in the UK?
Absolutely.
Amazing. So if any promoter out there is seeing this, make the right offer. Let's get Stefi Cohen in the UK. Her fans are waiting.
Of course, I'm interested.
But you mentioned Ebanie without me saying anything. Is that a name that you've been linked with or someone that you would like to get in the ring with?
Her and Shannon are two that, first of all, I look up to them immensely. I think, they are the perfect faces for the sport. They're beautiful, they're charming, they're extremely talented athletes. So we communicate on Instagram. We like each other's posts. So absolutely, I would love to, even if it's not the fight, I would love to meet them. They seem pretty awesome.
Amazing. If there is anyone out there, male or female, that look up to you, but, are too scared to make that goal and that dream of theirs come a reality like the way you have, and, you set a goal, you complete it, you set another goal, you complete it. What advice can you give to them?
I honestly think that the main limiting factor for most people for why they don't do things they want to do is fear and or fear of failure. So as far as fear goes, we are fearful when our competency and our experience doesn't match up with the task that we're trying to do. And those are two things that we have control over. You can improve your competency and you can slowly, through graded exposure, improve the amount of experience or increase the amount of experience that you have on a particular area. So the perfect example I can give you that comes to my mind is motorcycle riding. So I've been riding an Indian motorcycle for about a year, and I got offered to go on an all-paid trip to Big Sur with Indian for a 5-day trip. 8 to 10 hours of riding a day on a 900-pound bike. So obviously I want to go, but obviously I'm afraid. I'm scared that my skills as a rider might not, I might not be ready for a trip like that. I'm scared of looking like an idiot if I dump the bike. I'm scared of holding back the crew or whatever it is. So in preparation for that trip, I tried to improve my competency as a rider as much as possible. So I took motorcycle lessons. I watched videos on like how to take turns safely, watched videos on whatever, I try to improve my understanding of motorcycle riding as much as possible so I can decrease the amount of fear that I had about going to that trip. So that applies to literally everything. When you understand, when you look at fear objectively, why am I afraid? What am I afraid of? And you break it down into competency and experience, nothing is scary anymore. There's nothing complex. It's just a combination of simple things. So if you can rationalize what you're afraid of, and if you can look at it in an objective way, there's really nothing that you should be scared of. And then as far as fear of failure goes, because I think that's the other reason why people are reluctant to get into something new. If you ever are in a situation, and everybody has been, I know, when you're in a situation where you fail, look back at that time and think back at it deeply and remember how you felt. I remember the last time I failed at something, I bombed out at a meet, or actually I got kicked out of grad school in my first semester and I had to write an appeal. When you're in that moment and you sit there and you're like, this is the worst case scenario and it's not that bad. I'm not dead. I know how to get out of here. I have more options. I can call my dad. I can call my friend. I can do this or I can do that. And you realize that the only thing that doesn't have a solution is death. When you're in that position and you can actually figure out how to get out, then what does it matter? So my best advice for people is that, if you're afraid of something, don't let fear be a limiting factor as to why you're not doing something. Just improve your experience and your competency, and don't be afraid to fail, because literally everybody does, and it's never as bad as we think it's going to be.
Brilliant. Stefi, quick question before I let you go. If I was to send this video to the head national coach of the Venezuelan soccer women's team, and they said, I'm going to give Stefi one opportunity to play for us, would you take it?
Fuck. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll send it to them 100%, because you know what? We need to take something that off the bucket list too.
It'd be crazy.
Stefi, before I let you go, a message for your fans, and September 18th, what can we expect?
You can expect a super exciting fight. I'm training extremely hard, training 6 days a week, doing 2 training sessions a day, putting everything that I have. And I know it's going to be an impressive fight. But September 18th, you can already get your pay-per-view tickets. Use my code Stefi at checkout, of course. And yeah, stay tuned. Hopefully, if you guys can make it to the fight, that'd be even better. But if not, I really appreciate, everybody's support, including the haters, because you make me more popular. So yeah, excited to show you guys what I have.
Stefi, I want to say thank you on behalf of myself and the Pound for Pound Boxing Show for coming on and speaking to me today. It is an absolute honor. I've been following your journey for a long time, and it's great to finally speak to you.
Of course. Thank you so much for the awesome interview.
Thank you. Take care and good luck with everything in your career.
Thank you. We'll keep in touch.
Thank you. Take care.